Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines? Have her own privacy? My love, I will do anything for your privacy.
Seriously, it's driving me crazy. The prince plays drums all day. I don't even think he has a job.
Paris Fashion Week 2024. Cameras everywhere, influencers positioned perfectly, front row seats at Balenciaga. Meghan Markle walked in expecting applause. What she got instead: silence, cold, expensive, awkward silence. And here's the wild part: that silence became the loudest moment of the year when South Park turned it into comedy that hit different. Listen, we've all seen celebrities get roasted before, but this wasn't just another celebrity takedown. This was something else. Because South Park didn't need to invent storylines or make stuff up.
You wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist. We just want to be normal people.
They just held up a mirror, and what people saw made them laugh harder than any joke could. Now, what happened next is where things get really interesting. Hit that like button and subscribe, because the way this all unfolded is absolutely wild. Let's dive in. Here's what they wanted. Headlines screaming, Meghan returns in style. Fashion influencers buzzing about every outfit choice. A full comeback moment that would reset the narrative. Balenciaga gave her front row seats, expecting a global splash. Cameras positioned to catch every angle.
Yeah! It's like a popcorn! Down with them!
This was supposed to be the event where everything turned around, the redemption arc. That's not what happened. The crowd's reaction was muted. Polite, sure, but muted in that way that's almost worse than silence. No standing ovation, no excited whispers, just this weird, uncomfortable quiet. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and the energy just isn't there. That's what this was, magnified by hundreds of cameras. And when you're someone who built a career on capturing attention, silence isn't neutral, it's rejection. The cameras caught every second of that awkwardness.
Like everything Meghan touches, even this small moment turned into a full-blown production. In the photo, she's holding a jar of...
Within hours, the clips started circulating everywhere. Thousands of them across every platform, different angles, different moments, but all showing the same thing: someone trying really hard to make a moment happen while the room wasn't feeling it. The internet does what it does best. They replayed it frame by frame, zoomed in on expressions, created side-by-side comparisons. And here's the thing: people weren't even being mean at first. They were just confused. The comments were asking genuine questions like, wait, is she okay? And why does this feel so scripted? Get this. The memes started before the fashion articles even dropped.
Toronto, it's good morning, Canada. It has been several months now since our beloved queen...
Usually it's the other way around, right? Big fashion moment happens, press writes about it, then maybe it becomes a meme. This time, social media decided the narrative before traditional media could spin it. And what they decided was that something felt off. Not wrong exactly, just performed. Like watching someone act natural instead of actually being natural. The comparisons people were making weren't harsh. They were just pointing out how the whole thing felt less like a spontaneous appearance and more like a scene from a reality show where everyone knows the cameras are rolling.
We want privacy! We want privacy! Thanks for having us on the show!
It's so...
Overly posed, candid shots. Laughs that seemed timed for the photographer. Waves that looked rehearsed. Nothing scandalous, just this growing sense that audiences were watching a performance rather than experiencing an authentic moment. And that feeling sticks. That's what lingers long after the event ends. Because audiences have gotten really good at spotting the difference between genuine and manufactured. They can smell a setup from a mile away now. South Park's writers were watching too. They saw the same thing everyone else did, caught the same weird energy.
Your millions from Netflix for no one knows what.
Put it with the rest of them.
Babe, time...
And they recognized it for what it was, a perfect setup for satire. Here's where South Park comes in, the show that's made an art form out of spotting cultural absurdity and turning it into comedy. They didn't need months of research. They just needed what was already playing out on everyone's Twitter feed. The awkward Fashion Week moment, the memes, the confused reactions, all sitting there ready to be turned into something bigger. Respect Our Runway dropped and it hit different. The episode didn't invent new storylines. It took what viewers had already been noticing and amplified it just enough to make it impossible to ignore.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been absolutely savaged by South Park in a new episode entitled
That's the thing about great satire. It doesn't make stuff up. It just holds up a mirror and makes the reflection sharper until you can't unsee what you're looking at. Listen, South Park's used silence as a weapon before, but this time it was perfectly deployed. In the episode, the character sits in that front row seat expecting the moment to land, and the crowd, they just stare. That muted reaction that's somehow more devastating than any booing, because when you're performing for attention and nobody gives you any, that's when the performance becomes visible. The brilliance wasn't in the jokes, it was in the timing.
So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you're saying your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your...
The episode aired right when people were still processing what they'd seen, still trying to figure out why it felt strange. South Park gave them the language for it. They turned that vague, uncomfortable feeling into something specific. The comedy worked because it wasn't about creating something new. It was about naming something that already existed. Get this, the parody didn't even exaggerate that much. That's what made it brutal. They showed a character changing personas depending on who was in the room, adjusting the performance based on the audience, and...
That's fine, I'll go it alone. Just like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Sir, your millions from Netflix.
Viewers recognized it instantly because they'd been watching the same pattern. The humanitarian moment, then the businesswoman pivot, then the lifestyle guru era. Each one carefully presented, each one feeling just a bit too rehearsed. Here's the genius part. The show used the characters' own contradictions as the punchline, demanding attention while claiming to want none, curating every public moment while calling it authentic, building a brand around being relatable from a setup that's anything but. South Park didn't need to make any of that up.
Trying to make ourselves into a brand just turned us into products. We don't need to be a brand, do we? If it's true...
They just put it all in one place and let audiences connect the dots. Now listen, silence in comedy is everything. When the animated crowd doesn't react, when they just sit there looking uncomfortable, that pause does more work than any joke could. Because that's the moment viewers at home recognize. They've seen that exact energy before. They've felt that secondhand embarrassment watching someone try too hard. The cartoon wasn't showing them something new. It was showing them something familiar in a way that made it impossible to look away. The episode understood something crucial.
Live from the television studios in Toronto, it's Good Morning, Canada.
Authenticity isn't about being real anymore. It's about looking real. It's about performing naturalness so well that people forget it's a performance. But audiences have gotten really good at spotting when something's staged, when the candid shot is actually the 15th take, when the spontaneous moment was planned days ago. South Park made that visible. They took all those little moments that felt slightly off and lined them up where you couldn't miss them anymore. The carefully timed laugh, the wave that looks practiced, the pose that's too perfect for someone supposedly caught off guard. None of it's dramatic alone.
Meghan Markle said she cried over South Park, but the rest of the world just laughed. Where this all began was in February of 2021 when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle...
But when you see it all together through satire, that's when the pattern becomes obvious. And that's why it worked. The show didn't need to convince anyone. They just reflected what people were already thinking but couldn't quite articulate. It's like when you watch something and know it feels weird but can't put your finger on what. Then someone points it out and suddenly you can't believe you didn't see it before. That's what this episode did. The comedy wasn't mean-spirited in the traditional sense. It was observational, watching someone work really hard to control their image while that image kept slipping, watching someone try to appear effortless.
Basically, to babysit the media so he doesn't look bad anymore. And here's the kicker. He wants Meghan Markle to officially be called...
While the effort showed through every moment. That's funny in a way that's almost uncomfortable because you're laughing at something that feels a little too real. What made it a masterclass was the precision. South Park's writers knew exactly which moments to highlight, exactly which patterns to emphasize, exactly how far to push before it stopped being funny. They walked that line perfectly. Audiences ate it up because it gave them permission to say out loud what they'd been thinking privately. Before the episode, people would see those awkward moments and maybe mention them in comments, but with hesitation.
Trying to make ourselves into a brand just turned us into products. We don't need to be a brand, do we?
After the episode, the hesitation disappeared. South Park normalized the observation. They made it okay to point out that something felt performed, that the whole thing looked like an expensive production rather than a genuine moment. That's the power of good satire. It doesn't create the sentiment, it validates it. It takes what people are already feeling and gives them a way to express it that feels safe and funny. And once that validation happens, once people realize they're not the only ones seeing it, the conversation shifts completely.
We are once again going to be talking about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle because even though they have retreated into...
Here's where things get interesting. What South Park really nailed wasn't just one awkward moment, it was the bigger pattern people had been watching for years. What happens when someone becomes less of a person and more of a constantly shifting brand? Listen, everyone in entertainment has some image management. That's normal, but there's a difference between having a public persona and becoming a collection of personas that switch depending on what's trending. That's what South Park zeroed in on. The character in the episode shifts constantly. One scene, she's the humanitarian, all serious about global issues.
Look, Kyle, we just kind of don't care about some dumb prince and his stupid wife.
South Park just destroyed Prince Harry. And honestly,
Next scene, she's the businesswoman talking brands and deals. Then she's the lifestyle guru sharing wellness tips. Each version is polished, carefully presented, and just different enough that you start wondering which one is actually real. Get this, that's not exaggeration, that's observation. People watching at home had been seeing the same thing. The royal rebel era, then the victimhood narrative, then the empowerment phase, then the entrepreneur chapter, then the wellness influencer moment. Each one launched with interviews and photo shoots, each one feeling like a complete reinvention.
I don't know whose idea this was, but it's a really bad one. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's lawyers are looking into...
Now here's the thing about reinvention. It works brilliantly when it feels genuine, when an artist evolves their sound, when someone genuinely discovers new passions. Audiences love that. But when the reinvention happens too fast, when the new version launches before anyone's processed the last one, that's when people get suspicious. South Park showed a character who couldn't stick with any identity long enough for it to land, always pivoting, always adjusting based on what might get the best response. And viewers recognized it because they'd watched that pattern. The humanitarian work that got dropped, the business ventures that disappeared.
Oh, just calmly picks the pillow up, shoves it back under her dress, and gets ready for the next take. The
causes that got quietly abandoned. The episode nailed this by showing how exhausting it is to watch. The character introduces herself differently depending on who she's talking to. And the joke isn't that she's doing it. Lots of people in entertainment do this. The joke is how obvious it's become, how you can almost see the strategy meeting behind every appearance. Listen, audiences have gotten smart about personal branding. They understand Instagram curation. They know how PR works. They can spot when someone's workshopping their identity like it's a product launch. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
What do you have to say to your fellow gingers?
When South Park makes fun of you, we should be so.
That's what South Park did. They made the mechanics visible. You know what that looks like to an audience? Someone who doesn't know who they are, trying on different identities to see which gets the best reaction. Someone more interested in being famous than in being known. And that's a vibe that doesn't land anymore, not when audiences value authenticity above everything else. South Park's character can't land on anything long enough to build credibility. The moment one identity loses momentum, there's a pivot to something new. Fresh branding, fresh messaging, fresh attempt to capture what's trending. It's reactive.
The British media dropped a bombshell tonight. According to a new survey conducted this week, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's...
Instead of genuine, and audiences pick up on that instantly. Get this, the show even captured how the messaging sounds exactly the same every time. It's always about finding her truth, living authentically, being brave. But when you use the same language to describe 6 different versions of yourself, that language stops meaning anything. People can tell the difference between speaking from the heart and reading from a script. The constant reinvention makes it impossible to connect with anything real. There's no consistency to latch onto, no core identity that stays stable.
South Park, is a show that I have enjoyed, I would say, on an infrequent basis from time to time. It's not like a regular watch for me. But there are certain episodes.
It's all surface level presentation, all designed for maximum impact with minimum substance behind it. That's what South Park exposed. Not that someone's changing or growing, that's normal. What they exposed is when the changing itself becomes the product. When every new version is just another attempt to stay relevant rather than authentic evolution. The episode showed how audiences eventually just stop trying to keep up. Stop caring about the next pivot because they know another one's coming anyway. That's the death of genuine interest. Not hate, not anger, just exhaustion and apathy. And for someone who built everything on capturing attention, apathy is the worst outcome.
Me and H, we did see our little stint on South Park, and of course, as an American, I've seen the show before, right?
South Park made people realize they weren't alone in feeling that fatigue. The show just gave them permission to acknowledge it out loud, to say, yeah, we're all seeing this, and it's okay to be tired of it. That's brutal in a way that's almost worse than direct mockery. It's not saying someone's terrible, it's just saying the performance has become so obvious that people have stopped believing any of it. And once that's gone, no amount of reinvention can get it back. Now let's talk about the Balenciaga choice, because the symbolism here was almost too perfect.
Trey and Matt have never hidden their opinions about performative activism or curated public personas. In this special,
Here's a fashion house dealing with its own PR issues, trying to rebuild after some questionable campaign choices. And who shows up front row? Someone else on a years-long mission to rehabilitate their public image. Listen, this wasn't lost on anyone. Two entities in the same room, both desperately trying to convince the world they've changed, they've learned, they've grown, both running full PR campaigns about fresh starts, both hoping people will forget the controversies and focus on whatever narrative they're pushing this week.
The UK media is absolutely delusional. Harry and Meghan are not paying South Park any time.
South Park saw this and recognized it immediately. Two reputation management machines colliding, both trying so hard to look effortless while everyone can see the effort. It's like watching actors in a scene where they're supposed to be casual, but you can see them remembering their lines. Get this. The timing made it even more loaded. Balenciaga was actively trying to move past their mistakes, booking celebrities who could bring positive attention. They needed someone who'd generate headlines for the right reasons. And here comes someone who also needs headlines for the right reasons.
Women want to read about big, powerful songs. Look, I've seen women read these things. They skim along until they get to the...
Who's been trying to shift public perception for years. The problem, audiences weren't buying either redemption arc. People looked at this pairing and didn't see two entities successfully moving forward. They saw two PR strategies hoping to validate each other. It's that thing where you bring your friend to back up your story, except everyone knows your friend is also trying to sell their own story. Here's what made it perfect for satire. Neither side seemed to realize how transparent it looked. The fashion house thought they were booking prestige. The celebrity thought she was aligning with high fashion credibility.
Meghan Markle apparently cried when she watched an episode of South Park. So there was a recent episode of South Park making fun of Meghan Markle.
But what audiences saw was two troubled brands trying to use each other as cover. South Park captured this by showing characters constantly talking about authenticity, while everything they do screams calculation. The episode just showed the character in spaces where optics mattered more than anything real, where every appearance was about image rehabilitation rather than genuine connection. Now, here's the thing about rebranding through association. It only works if what you're associating with has solid credibility. When you've got two entities both scrambling for credibility.
Oh, guys, New York was supposed to be their moment. Harry and Meghan were meant to step out like the power couple who had it all.
Both hoping the other provides it. You just highlight how neither of you has it. It's like two people drowning trying to save each other. What South Park understood is that modern audiences are exhausted by obvious reputation management. They're tired of watching celebrities and brands smooth over controversies with carefully staged appearances that feel more like business transactions than authentic collaborations. People can tell when they're watching a PR stunt. The Balenciaga appearance became a symbol of everything South Park was mocking, not just one person's image issues.
Apparently that was a little too much for them to handle, and they're trying to file a lawsuit against South.
And this is why misinformation is...
But this whole ecosystem of reputation rehabilitation that feels increasingly hollow, where brands and celebrities cycle through controversies and comebacks like it's part of the business model. Mess up, disappear briefly, come back with a redemption narrative, repeat. And audiences are over it. They're tired of being asked to forget every few months when the next carefully orchestrated comeback rolls out. South Park made all of this visible by just pointing at it. They showed a character moving through spaces where everything is performance, everything is calculated, everything is about...
Harry, did you see the latest South Park episode?
I did, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was clearly a dig at Anne.
Yeah, this one definitely was.
managing perception rather than actually being anything real, and viewers recognized it immediately. Here's where things really shifted. Before South Park, there was this weird hesitation in how people talked about what they were seeing. Entertainment journalists wrote carefully worded pieces that danced around observations. Late-night hosts made gentle jokes that never landed on the point. Social media had scattered takes that didn't coalesce into anything bigger. The entertainment industry has always been cautious about certain topics.
Harry and Meghan have finally spoken out about the wonderful South Park episode that mercilessly ridiculed the Harkles.
There's this unspoken rule about who you can openly mock and who gets handled with kid gloves, so the conversation stayed polite, stayed surface level. Listen, people in Hollywood saw the same awkward moments everyone else did, but saying it publicly, that felt risky. Then South Park aired, and something changed immediately. Get this, within 24 hours, the episode was everywhere. Not just viral for 5 minutes, but actually shaping how people talked about the whole situation. All those observations that felt too harsh had been said through comedy. All those patterns people noticed had been laid out in cartoon form.
Trying to make ourselves into a brand just turned us into products. We don't need to be a brand, do we?
And here's what's wild. Comedy creates permission. When satire lands this hard, it signals that it's okay to have this conversation now. The hesitation disappears because South Park already went there and people laughed and the memes flooded in. TikTok creators broke down the parallels. YouTube channels analyzed how accurate it was. Instagram posted comparisons with millions of views. The episode became the framework for how everyone talked about it. Late-night shows that had been making gentle jokes suddenly got bolder. They referenced South Park directly, made observations that would have felt too sharp before.
Harry once said that where Meghan went wrong is that she overshadowed the Queen and the rest of the royals in the news.
But now, fair game. Here's the thing about cultural permission. Once it's granted, you can't take it back. Entertainment reporters started writing more direct pieces. Opinion writers used language that actually named what was happening. Even fashion publications started questioning the authenticity. They'd use phrases like strategic positioning, language that acknowledged what everyone was thinking. South Park made it acceptable to analyze this as a cultural phenomenon. Social media shifted too. Before the episode, critical observations got pushed back.
So when I say South Park destroyed Scientology and Meghan and Harry, I don't just mean it like, oh, they got murdered.
After, those same observations got thousands of likes. People felt validated. They weren't being harsh. They were noticing what professional comedians had noticed. What South Park did was give everyone the language and permission. They turned private observations into public discourse. They made it okay to laugh at something people had been pretending to take seriously. Get this, even PR professionals started referencing the episode in their analysis. Industry people who normally defend celebrities were using the parody as an example of when image management becomes too obvious.
Developing right now, growing talk in Hollywood. That South Park.
Here's what made it stick. The episode created vocabulary. Phrases from the show became shorthand for discussing celebrity culture in general. South Park created a framework that outlasted the specific moment. That's the real power of satire. It doesn't just make fun of things, it changes how we're allowed to talk about them. And once that shift happens, it doesn't move back. Here's what happened next. The episode didn't just get views and move on. It became self-sustaining. Every clip, every line turned into content that kept spreading.
Meghan and Harry have been the subjects of a recent South Park episode, where, and there's no other word for this,
The pair have been... The internet took what South Park created and ran with it. Within days, you couldn't scroll without seeing references. Twitter threads breaking down jokes, TikTok comparisons, Instagram memes, YouTube reactions getting millions of views. The episode became the gift that kept giving. Get this, major news outlets started covering it. Not gossip sites, but mainstream journalism. They'd quote lines from the show in their coverage. A cartoon became part of how serious journalists talked about celebrity culture. Listen, this is the real power of going viral. It's about becoming part of the language.
Normal people, all this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does...
South Park created the vocabulary everyone else used. Entertainment journalists found themselves referencing cartoon jokes. Fashion Week coverage would mention the episode alongside runway shows. The parody had become inseparable from the real story. Here's where it gets interesting. The more the episode got referenced, the more it defined the narrative. Every new appearance got compared to what South Park showed. People would watch something happen and go, wait, this is literally the episode. The satire became the lens for viewing everything else.
The Royal Ruckus, Prince Harry's futile attempt to silence South Park. In a shocking turn of events, the quiet...
Social media turned it into an industry. Meme accounts dedicated feeds to the jokes. Commentary channels built videos around it. Even unrelated celebrities would reference it because everyone understood. It became cultural shorthand. Now here's the brutal part. Once you become a punchline, you lose control of your story. People filter everything through the joke they already know. Every move after got read through that lens. New business venture, South Park comparisons, charity appearance, same thing. The parody created a framework audiences used to interpret everything. Get this, the episode created a self-fulfilling prophecy.
After the success of the Worldwide Privacy Tour, presenter Dan Wooten revealed that the South Park creators might be working on storyboards for a new episode.
The more someone tried to manage their image in response, the more they looked like they were doing exactly what the parody predicted. Any course correction just reinforced the joke. Traditional PR doesn't work against this kind of viral moment. You can't release a statement that makes people forget. Because the joke isn't about one thing, it's about the pattern. And patterns are hard to escape once people see them. What made this sticky was that it wasn't mean enough to create sympathy, but accurate enough to be undeniable. Just widespread agreement that, yeah, they nailed it.
I was crying out for help. I needed to go somewhere to get help. I didn't like myself. I was ashamed. I was really ashamed to say it at the time.
The viral economy lasted months. Usually, internet attention moves on fast, but this kept coming back. Every new appearance, the comparisons would resurface. The memes would get remade. Here's what happens when you lose control of your narrative. Other people start telling your story, and their version, shaped by the viral moment, becomes more powerful than anything you say about yourself. Journalists started using phrases from the episode in their coverage, not as jokes, but as descriptive language. When professional journalists are quoting cartoon jokes in analysis,
Well, we can be normal people! Come on, wife! We want privacy! We want privacy! We want privacy!
the cultural impact has gone beyond entertainment. So here we are. Paris Fashion Week was supposed to be a comeback. Instead, it became the setup for one of the most effective pieces of satire in recent memory. South Park didn't destroy anything that wasn't already crumbling. They just pointed at what everyone was already seeing. Here's the thing. It's not really about one person or one awkward moment. It's about what happens when the performance becomes more famous than the person performing. When the image management becomes so obvious that audiences can't see anything else.
Ever heard of a thing called privacy?
Yeah, nobody gives a shit. Will you two just shut up and go away?
When every move is so calculated that spontaneity becomes impossible. South Park didn't create a villain. They held up a mirror to modern celebrity culture and asked a simple question. What are we actually watching here? Is this authenticity, or is this an expensive production running out of budget and goodwill? And the audience answered by laughing. Listen, satire works best when it doesn't have to exaggerate. When reality is already absurd enough that you just need to frame it differently. That's what happened here. The Fashion Week silence, the the constant reinventions, the strategic appearances.
We're laughing, yelling, "Guess Harry's banned from the kitchen for safety reasons." But that's Meghan in a nutshell. Everything has to look perfect.
None of that needed embellishment. It just needed South Park to point and say, look at what's happening. The episode became a cultural moment because it validated what people were already thinking. It gave them permission to acknowledge the obvious. And once that permission is granted, get this, we're living in an era where audiences are incredibly sophisticated about image management. They grew up with reality TV, they understand influencer culture, they know how social media works. They can spot a calculated move from miles away.
Your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines? What are you suggesting? Well, I just think
And when celebrities keep trying the same playbook while pretending it's authentic, audiences get tired. Not angry, just tired. What South Park captured was that exhaustion, that collective fatigue of watching someone pivot and rebrand over and over while claiming each version is the real truth. The episode worked because it spoke to something people were feeling, but didn't have words for. Here's what's wild. The more time passes, the more accurate the satire seems.
To be respected. After storming off a TV show, they then moved to South Park in an attempt to make people think they're normal. But there are
New developments keep happening that feel like they were written into the episode. Life keeps imitating the parody. And every time that happens, it reinforces the point. The pattern is predictable because it's strategic, not genuine. So did South Park go too far? Here's the thing. They didn't go anywhere. They just showed what was already there. They didn't invent contradictions. They observed patterns audiences had been noticing for years and turned those observations into 10 minutes of comedy that hit harder than any serious criticism could. The real question isn't whether South Park was too harsh.
An eye over South Park's latest series
It's why it took a cartoon to say what everyone else was thinking. Why did it take satire to point out what was happening in plain sight? And what does it say about celebrity culture that audiences were so ready to laugh at this particular observation? Maybe the answer is simple. People are tired of being sold authenticity that doesn't feel authentic. They're tired of constant reinventions that feel more like marketing campaigns than genuine growth. And when South Park gave them permission to laugh at all of it, they did, loudly. So what do you think? Did South Park just make a funny episode, or did they actually capture something real? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you think about all of this. And if you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We're breaking down more stories like this, so turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.